Who are you? Water says, run.
I'm not the same as I was. Am I a mountain spring?
Water says, run.
I can trace the river back to myself. Am I mountain spring? A single drop of rain? I can trace the river back to myself.
Water says, I am river.
A single drop of rain on the surface of now?
Water says, I am river.
I carry sister, mother, daughter, lover on the surface of now.
Climb onto my liquid back before you drown.
I carry sister, mother, daughter, lover.
Water says, you carry too much weight. Climb onto my liquid back before you drown.
Am I a trickle? A babble? A splash? A drip?
Water says, you carry too much weight. Remember when you were buoyant?
Am I a trickle? A babble? A splash? A drip? Am I your reflection?
Remember when you were buoyant? When you spread out your arms and floated like a starfish?
I am your reflection.
I loved it when you were mountain spring. When you spread out your arms and floated like a starfish, dreaming only of today. I loved it when you were mountain spring.
I was a drop in your ocean, dreaming only of today. Remember when I pooled in your lap?
You were a drop in my ocean, a gigantic wave. Water says, yes. I remember when you pooled in my lap. I held you in a gigantic wave. You slipped through my fingers. Water says we are meant to change. Let go, mountain spring.
I'm not the same as I was.
Water says we are meant to change. Water says, who are you?
She is river. She rises from earth deep under the Preseli. Feel how cool is her birth through centuries of peat in a marsh of Svagen, weeping from the inner core. River wells up among heathers and lil. Her bourne trickles and bubbles, forms bowls rich and warm. Taste her home sauce, and there is iron. Scent her keld, her acid origins. She reflects light from mountain tops, mirrors clouds in mires. She is river, this is home. Fluent, perpetual, streaming, unbroken, ever changing, never ceasing. White water spills and rides through gorges, under bridges, spoons over falls, surges beneath spring leaves. Spreading broad and slow under hot summer skies, her force rages and races after autumn rains. while she flows through farmland, past factories, industrial estates, through housing, beside roads, below bridges, she swallows taints and tints of effluent, takes in all our poisons, absorbs slurry from fields, sewage overspill, chemical discharges, and she gathers up our plastic waste. She is river, this is her home. Fluent, perpetual, streaming, unbroken, ever changing, never ceasing. There is no return. She flows ever down. Down she runs for miles and miles until she emerges in havens and estuaries where gulls wheel and squeal, dolphins leap, autumn seals wail, and the oyster catchers are keen. Where every day pleasure boats buzz, ferries dock, gas and oil tankers come and go. treat our silence. Listen. She calls, she is river. And as we swim in her broad flows, spread limbs in her eddies, water like silk on skin, we will absorb the slicks and slips, the toxic essences, the oily licks that we have poured into her. We will take it all in. She is river. She rises from earth deep under the Preseli. Feel how cool is her birth. Through centuries of peaks in a marsh of sphagnum, weeping from the inner core, river wells up among heathers and ling. Her bourne trickles and bubbles, forms bogs rich and warm. Taste her home source, and there is iron. Scent her keld, her acid origins. She reflects light from mountain tops, mirrors clouds in mires. She is river. This is home. Fluent, perpetual, streaming, unbroken, ever-changing, never ceasing. White water spills and writhes through gorges, under bridges, spoons over falls, surges beneath spring leaves. Spreading broad and slow under hot summer skies, her force rages and races after autumn rains. And while she flows through farmland, past factories, industrial estates, through housing, beside roads and below bridges, she swallows taints and tints of effluent, takes in all our poisons, absorbs slurry from fields, sewage overspill, chemical discharges, and she gathers up our plastic waste. She is river. This is her home. Fluent, perpetual, streaming, unbroken, ever-changing, never ceasing. There is no return. She flows ever down. Down she runs for miles and miles until she emerges in havens and estuaries, where gulls wheel and squeal, dolphins leap, autumn seals wail, and the oyster catchers are keening, where every day pleasure boats buzz, ferries dock, gas and oil tankers come and go, where curlews call to entreat our silence. Listen. She calls. She is river. And as we swim in her broad flows, spread limbs in her eddies, water like silk on skin, we will absorb the slicks and slips, the toxic essences, the oily licks that we have poured into her. We will take it all in. Fluent, unbroken, streaming home to oceans, never ceasing, ever changing. Thank you.
The dance is done, the music dies, but in the artist's mind there lies the memory of moves and shapes. She then considers and creates. Shapes in clay, like blocks or shells, each a different story tells. The blocks, like steps that form the dance, support the curves, the shapes and hands. All vintage, but time restores, the dance goes on, the clay endures.
Deep river memory. Early morning, mist blooms its cold breath along the Avon Tower, just a field or two away from our back garden, not many a mile from its source. And down the road by the stone bridge, the moss-sleeved sycamores and the ivy-rampant alders thrive in the perennially moist air. Following the river's flowing meditations over rock, alder, willow root, through wet, rushy, bramble-scrambled meadow, I am taken back decades to the times I used to take my kids camping in a field by the upper Teifi, wanting them to know the value of river, rock, mountain, moor. And we saw more than once in late April sand martins nesting in holes in the river's sandy bank, just a short walk from our tents. In the Dinas Nature Reserve, we would walk by the headlong young Teifi, flashing its freshness, lodging around boulders that had crashed from the scree, galooshing, swirl-pooling by birches and slooshing the mosses that cushion the rowan and alder, where lichens are lodging, and plishing the misted, spasm-bright air, the rock-rooted birch, the mould-sprouted acorn and ferns unfurling in the up-facing armpits of alder and oak. Many moons later, my love and I, by the great Guadalquivir and Córdoba and Sevilla, watching the lovers and joggers and rowers, to then go to eat in the heat of the evening to the teenage eager flamenco guitarists, warm breeze and low sun by the turbid river, its rhythms refracted through memory, the great Andalusian Guadalquivir. Now, how we love our visits to Larne, where the Tave ends its ramblings down at the sea, the three-throated estuary where water dances light in its arms, where water sings deep stone stories from its belly, and moon and tide serenade and kiss, and the ceaseless silver song of poetry is the river's mastery. The curlew calls ripple the slow echoing air. All the rivers coursing through us, by us, beyond us, to the fertile birthing seas that seed the clouds to feed our deep river memories.
Severn, from the Roman Sabrina, thought to be summer Valerie. Prayer for Valerie. Sister Severn, carry us along the river of triptides and twists. Teach us to mother brackish banks that slip. You who took the longest path, no slack, and the fiction of endless extraction. Brother Severn, wash us clean, quick from oil addiction. Help us return to slow. Our foolish fingers dangle to catch the sun, but my dust dreams burst like chaos, then run. Stardust Severn, show us a heaven on earth future, while our ancestors watch from iodine mists, willing us to sing this sea change away.
Floods of Mount Jack into the River Teifi, 30th of December 2023, 1st of January 2024, 18th of December 2024. She waves downstream. I do not make more here, I carve estuary. My child waters gushed, gouged an open wound in my folded flesh mud, which slurps her through sounds, suck and thuck, stuck in crud, dropped by flood. The innocence of tributary slinks, slithers, sloshes over her boots, her toes curl, screech and wet, flex warm. She sees inundated debris, red lifebelt, blue crock, green bucket, bright against my earth sinew and bone. Jack scratches over cockle, gold sand. Jack scores through gravel, grit. Jack scoops pebble and rubble, rock and stone. Jack sips pink silt as he braids us all new.
In some cultures, people introduce themselves by their mountains and their rivers. They know that we are placed by our landscapes or grow into them like an oxbow. I'm from the landlocked Midlands, spent years roaming the heather-swathed peaks. So my mountain, well, hill really, is Kinderscout. My home river is the Soar, but its red bricks, industrial banks don't seem to fit into my landscape. So where or who is my river? The first time I paddled you, it felt prehistoric. No human lines to straighten edges, and I swear a pterodactyl, or maybe a heron, led the way. I have swum, dipped, dunked, soaked, and plunged into your waters, and you have continued to carry and hold me. I've swum from crudely cobbled rope swing, all shrieks and giggling, to heavy pop into your deeper bends. I've sat, sobbed, heart-wrenching heaves by Fleckwood Ridge when love leached away. On violent days, when storm clouds touch cliff tops, you remind me of mortality. Ankle-tugging fear of fresh slipstreams to salty panic, saved by surface and a healthy dose of tidal respect. And now, I can see you, each morning, compad barefoot across kitchen floor, hear the murder of crows with their bubble balls, lapping and curlew calls. So tell me what belonging is, if not this mountain, if not this river. My name is Pat. My mountain is Kinderscout. My river is Teifi.
River. River swings around the corner where we spin stones, listens to the rhythm of leather on rhythm, children's high notes in the playground. River dances over rock and stone, mirrors the trees that bend and bow with the wind. River partners along disused railway line, curls round water meadows, hurries under bridges. River's music swells, it remodels the land, but like clay in a potter's hands. River shushes below the churchyard, murmurs in an ancient tongue, energizes salmon, suing, farmer, fisherman. River dreams of better times, bears the changing landscape in its arms.
In a cold river. We immerse ourselves in the current. Freezing water laps our earlobes. Trees on the banks fit leaves into the flow. We could let go, relax muscles into the core, and float gently downstream, gazing up through sun-washed spring green, coasting. Instead, push up. We go for the source, no lingering, but feet tangle in winding weeds, tiny fish nibble toes, and is so cold on cold that we can hardly breathe. We are stuck in the middle of a deep pool. We pull hard, but the current pulls back, holds us firm. As we can't move along, we must go deeper. Heads under, cold water in ears, noses, eyes, goose pimples on scalps. Webbing grows on our hands, between our toes. Mouths gape, tails flick, bodies curve and push forward. We glide upstream towards where we were born and where we will spawn. We will flash blue and silver in sunshine as we leap the raging waterfalls. People on shore will gaze in wonder at our reflected light. We swim against the flow, and we are free.
Thank